Hey, hey, hey. This is Brother Baruti, and this is the Sourceseeker Hour at a different time. Normally we're at 6:30, but we had to make some changes so that we can have the show on the same day as it was scheduled, but it had to be set up a little bit later. And I thank Dr. Cleo Wadley for letting me change the time so that we can continue to try to talk about things that are impactful in the Black community in a lot of ways. It used to be, Dr. Wadley, that the Black church was the main source of impact. You go back to the days of Booker T. Washington, Noble Drew Ali, the Clarence 3X. You have a lot of people associated with the ministry, and that was the main source of impact in our community. However, that has changed. Do you agree with that? And why did that happen?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think the founding guiding values of the Black church have changed, where before it was about group, promotion of the group, and now the Black church, and I'm speaking in general terms here, is promotion about the individual. It's about individual salvation. How do you get prosperity for your life so you can have the car you want, you can have the husband you want that's 6'2", 225, how you can have the Birkin bag that you want. I think that's what the church has become to now, where it's more about individual uh, uh, pursuits as opposed to group collective pursuits. And so that's why I think it's different than it was in the past, where the Black church before was a galvanizing group entity that was about institution that was about promoting the advancement of the race. And now I don't think it does that very well.
And before, it was really tied to the survival of Black people, because that's the only place that Black people could really congregate. And the theme was survival and finding a better life. And it was not, it was encouraged in the slave master
Right.
community, even though the rebellious nature, that part of the church was not encouraged, but it was encouraged, hey, y'all be good slaves and worship God, and
Right.
y'all be worship God and say, please be better slaves. And
Right.
so that was kind of the thing back then. But of course, when you have that platform, you can't necessarily just totally control it. And the ministers kind of revved up the people. But I think with the association of TV, as well as today, of course, social media, that ate into the foundation of the ministers and the church in such a way that it made it more difficult for them to congregate the Black people in a message. And they have so many different influences that, people look for different things. And of course, you're more able to see any kind of corruption or different things going on, and it's not as a holy uh, thought as much anymore as it used to be. So all of that was a part of it. We are inviting another brother in, and I'm gonna talk to him about the same thing.
Okay. Look forward to hearing this point of view.
Say again?
I look forward to hearing this point of view.
Yes. Hey, brother Ron, how you doing? We've already started.
Hey, good evening, man. I'm sorry I had some technical difficulties.
Perfectly okay. I just appreciate you working with me on that change of time at the last minute. I'm sorry about that, but I did not want to cancel. This is too important a subject matter. We just talked about and brought it up how the Black church used to be the foundation of the Black community.
mhm.
That kind of changed. Why and what was the cause of that change? And what's your perspective of that? Dr. Wadley already discussed that.
Yeah, mean, that's a good question. I mean, to put that in perspective, I think that the church is still a pillar. It's just that we in a day and time with I think social media has had has played a significant role. It's not that the church is no longer a pillar. It is that it's competing with so many other entities, and I think that's what accounts for it appearing to be that the church is no longer relevant, or no longer that it doesn't have the influence that it once had. I think the church still have the influence. Like I said, it's just that it competes with so many other things because of information is at our fingertips. I mean, we literally, have everything right there. But at one time we waited, to catch the news, right? But now, by the time if you thought you was gonna wait till 5 o'clock, 10 o'clock news, it's old news because the cycle of news is right before you. And just as news is, also with everything else that happens socially in our society, right? So I think, I mean, to answer that question, not to generalize it, but I think that's what accounts for the church not having, at least appearing not to have the impact that it once had.
And in my opinion, also the veil kind of, because of television, as you mentioned, social media, and then all of these competing forces, it doesn't have the congregation of impact that it did before. You used to go to the church, to the minister for your answers, and a question or a decision or a thought, and you don't do that now. You go to social media, you go to the television, and so forth, so on. So it has all those competing forces, as well as, when I say the veil, when you put more eyes on a situation, you can see sort of the downside of things a lot more, because that has shined a lot more. Dr. Wadley, you have anything more to talk about the black
Yeah,
church?
I would just add that, I mentioned earlier about just I think the values of, is it the chicken or the egg? Have people's values changed, or has the church's values changed, right? Whichever one it is you go with, I think the values have changed where it's more about individualism as opposed to a group dynamic. And so that's kind of something that's going on in our society as a whole, right? Where it's more about the I as opposed to the us. And I think the church is just caught up in it like all other institutions in this country. Regrettably, I think. But I think that's just the nature of it right now. I think the church right now is an institution geared toward individual fulfillment. How can I not be depressed? How can I have anxiety? How can I get, the husband and the house? How can I get that job I want? I think that's why that's what drives people to the Black church today. Not, man, how can we galvanize our people for economic, social, and political power? I think that's almost non-existent in the Black church today, which is converse to what it was during the civil rights movement and prior to that.
It used to be the time of Jesse Jackson, which was just recently, Reverend Al Sharpton. Those were the people that were making big impact just 20 years ago and so forth. Not as much today. Do we know about a minister that is really out there impacting? Now in Houston, I'm in Houston. We used to have Kirby John Caldwell, who was really doing some progressive and economic platform type things. But of course, something happened in that situation. We got T.D. Jakes, Reverend James Dixon, and different ministers still across the country. However, they're not at the top of the impact of Blacks. Later, we're going to talk about, who are the most top 10 impactful Black people in America. At this time, in my opinion, at least on my list, I don't have a Black minister at the top of that. Not even Minister Farrakhan or Jesse Jackson, because that kind of leadership is not at the forefront of what is moving Black people today. Anybody got a comment on that?
Well, and forgive me because I don't remember the pastor name, but I'm sorry, because I actually I know of his name. I just can't. It escapes me right now. But he's leading him in his organization. Or his church is leading the economic boycott against Target and other
I saw,
anti-DI.
I did see that on the news. I didn't catch his name either, though. He looked like he's about 45, though. Is that
Yeah, man, I know the guy. Jamal Bryant is his name. Jamal
okay?
Bryant. Jamal. So. I mean, I don't know enough about him to just wholeheartedly be a proponent or advocate for what he's doing. But I'm saying in terms of the economic boycott. I mean, that's instrumental. He's been very instrumental in organizing and galvanizing the church to come together in the black community, not just the black community, but for social justice, but for anyone that stands against,
Yeah,
I agree with you, brother.
I'll challenge you there, Baruti, on one. You mentioned Al Sharpton. I see Al Sharpton as a remnant of that time. I mean, that brother's still politically active. He leads National Action Network, which is a social change organization. He has a national broadcast, radio, and television show that he's
I
still
agree with you.
politically
I
active.
agree with you that he's an honorable mention and
Right.
does make some impact. But I'm saying there's people that have a little bit more impact than him because people are not listening to that type of leadership as much as they used to.
Oh, I agree with that. I agree
Yeah,
with
the
that.
time of Jesse Jackson, when he was running for president, we would listen to every word he was saying.
Mhm.
But I don't think that same impact is available for that type of leadership today. But this brother, he's making a name for himself. He maybe not that he mentioned Jamal Bryant. He's
Mhm.
making a name for himself, but he's not at that top tier level yet. But maybe we have
Maybe
this
one day.
conversation
Give
next
it some
year.
time.
It might be a possibility. Brother Ron, hopefully he'll come back. He was having a few technical
Technical issues.
difficulties, but hey, it's an interesting subject, and to look at that and the impact of the black church, because I still think it's the most has the most potential for moving our people. It still has that. It still has that organizing element, that possible power platform, and it has the greatest avenue, especially if you tie it with a media arm, as it could be today. I think
Right.
it still has that. But we are spiritual people. And if we
Right.
can tie what we're doing to God, not just individualism, there's it's hard to stop black people. Anything
I'll
else on
concur.
the black church?
No, I'll concur with that. I just think that rampant individualism has taken over our community and our values have just transformed. That it's about what I can get for me as an individual. And if the masses of people don't get theirs, well, that's too bad. I got mine. And I just think that's just where our values are now. And I think that's a result of integration. I think that came right around the same time as integration, where that value shift changed, where from a hey, how can we do better as a people and collectively organize and boycott and affect social change compared to, hey, I'm gonna get mine. So
I agree with you about the integration and those type of things. The only thing I will say to that is the whole paradigm and dynamic of how we got to progress may have to change because we do have that. The ice is colder in our subconscious on the other side.
all right.
Oh, we still have that, and we're going to have to fight that. But we have to understand there's a part of our people that still have that. We have to kind of show them that, hey, Ryan Coogler can get this top-notch contract, and he's a black man who
Right.
talks like us, looks like us, but he's able to go to that particular level. And then over time, we have to prove that, hey, our ice is just as cold as their ice. And we could
Right.
do and that's why I think the new progress is with black cinema. today. I'm thinking the new progress is with that. And, if more black directors can get contracts and that type of leverage like he has, not even Spike Lee had that type of leverage. He's done a lot of great movies, but they were not ready to back him in that particular way back in that day. But he's come along at the right time and has the right contacts that he's getting a certain amount of opportunity. And the power of black cinema to have a movie on the screen where you can portray a whole story and a whole image and a whole narrative, that is probably one of the most impactful across the board. That's why I have him at number 8. At least he's still a young brother, so he's still got a lot of possibilities. But what do you think about the power of black cinema?
Yeah, I think it's a tool for great transformative change, and I think it's a tool for great destruction. Hence, I love, Black Panther was revolutionary, right? How it portrayed Black people as an independent nation, strong, powerful, master of technology, smart, brilliant, beautiful in all our different facets, multidimensional, great, right? But then at the same time, we have a lot of movies that are, like say Black cinema, whatever you want to call it, Black shows that peddle Black pathology. The worst of what we do as a people is put on the stage for all of the world to see. And other races don't do that. Other races don't do that. But our pathology, we package it and put it out on the
Well,
stage for
I
consumption.
want to do a little disagreement. The white race, they have such a vast selection. They put out negative things in the worst way also. Now we don't have as many movies to choose from, so it has more impact if Tyler Perry comes out with Medea. That has more impact.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. Because there's a power differential right between us and them, where you can have a Goodfellas, where you got these foul, corrupt Italians murdering and robbing and killing, but then you have movies that have positive Italians. So on the other hand, you got John Travolta. You know what I'm saying? Doing the Saturday Night Live, not Saturday Night Live. What's it called? Saturday Night Fever. So
Yeah,
you got positive. In the contrast, we don't have that, and the movies that we do have, they're so the ones we do have that peddle that pathology are so impactful and harmful that it's just not a balance right now
I
between.
think it's becoming a little more balanced. I take a show, if you've seen it, The Godfather of Harlem, who portray historical figures of the black community. You really didn't used to show a facet of a character like Bumpy Johnson, who was just portrayed as a hoodlum and a bad guy back in the past. But now they try to show the positive of what he was doing, along with he did do some harmful things. But so did Al Capone. So did Bugsy, whatever his name is. You know what I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
to have much more of a balance today. Now we didn't have that opportunity because somebody else told our story
Right.
before. But now the executive producer of that show is Forrest Whitaker, and so he's able to show a different image. And that's why I'm saying black cinema is, I think, the best role that we have today, because we don't still control the news. We still, the projection of black people on the news is still negative,
Absolutely.
totally
It's visible.
negative, and we don't have a chance to balance that out. They still, ABC, NBC, CNN, those old white men
Fox.
behind those shows are still controlling the image that comes on every day.
Yeah, no doubt. I think cinema is a great platform for telling our stories. It's just that we need more of our stories out there to counterbalance. We need those counter narrative stories out there. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing. Stories that tell the opposite instead of movies like. And then I hate when they cloak movies like, oh, this is a black movie, but like the white character is the hero. Like for example, of The Blind Side, where Susan Sarandon was not Susan Sarandon. What's her name? Sarah, what's her name? I forget her name. whatever her name was, the actress was the savior for the dumb black poor athlete, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Freedom stories where the white teacher has to go into the school to make the black kids learn.
I think it's not as we moving away from that blind side or whatever it was. The story about that football player was maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think,
But those movies stay in the psyche
yeah,
of cinema, so they don't just go away once they come out. They stay planted firmly in the psyche of the people.
that is true. But what I'm saying is, if we can plant a new psyche, because the only one that's going to change our psyche is us because we care
Agreed.
about it.
Yeah,
That's why if we get more black directors,
I agree. Yeah, we got to tell our stories. I agree. We got to tell our stories. We got to have our counter narratives out there. That's imperative.
and we get many more black directors. You know, again, the time that Spike Lee came up, he was kind of the artificial or he was the sacrificial lamb, and he was struggling and trying to get funding and trying to have a be able to tell his story, but they put up so many roadblocks for him, and he only now is starting to make a profit. He lost so much money on his movies over time, and they always wanted to take control of it and so forth. But now he's finally getting some of the
Other than Ryan
accolades of his
Coogler,
years of experience.
so other than Ryan Coogler, who are your other models you point to that are doing these black film creators?
Well, some of the other directors are Lee Daniels. Denzel has done quite a few directorial roles. There's several black directors. Gary did a very good movie called not Boys in the Hood, Straight Out of Compton. I thought that was a great movie. Straight Out. Did you ever see that?
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, that
Being
was a
a hip
great
hop
movie.
fan, I was listening. That's when I first started listening to rap back in that time. So seeing that happen, it was like seeing my childhood, kind of my young adulthood during that time. So yeah, I enjoyed
And
that
he
film.
gave a different picture of who Eazy-E was. Eazy-E was not just a dope selling thug. He had some type of creativity, and that is why I'm saying black cinema is one of the new roads today. But of course, all of the areas that we have, politics, uh, television media, books, uh, athletes, all of them are important to our progress. Brother Ron, we're talking about black cinema. I submit that is one of the best roads today to be able to have an impact. And on my list, I got Ryan Coogler at number 8 because the possibility of what black cinema can do as far as telling our stories and having an impact. Are you pro or con, or what's your opinion on that?
In terms of using media, a cinema to depict or tell our stories, I miss Spike Lee. I think Spike Lee would go amongst the top. If we was to name individuals, John Singleton, also. But my number one in terms of individual that has used cinema to tell our stories or to try to incite or to inspire, I would say Spike Lee. You have Lee Daniels as well. Oprah Winfrey has, used her resources to also use cinema to,
What do you
educate
think
and
about what Tyler Perry has done and the projection of Medea, as far as the black community? What do you feel about that?
I have a lot of respect for Tyler Perry. I mean, considering where he comes from, being able to accumulate, the wealth, and I think he uses his platform
so I don't want to be super judgmental because I think with Madea, I think he's entertaining and he's in that lane. And I think the lines get blurred if we're going to look at him as one of the individuals that I mentioned before in terms of that. Although he does have some movies and he was able to depict and try to shed light and bring attention to certain plights within the Black community. But because of the entertainment in terms of I don't think he have. I mean, I'll be respectful in saying that. His identity hasn't solidified in terms of, because he's in that lane of the entertainment, and then sometimes it blurs the lines, right? It goes overboard in terms of, if you want to be held to that standard of a person that's going to do. Again, I don't want to box him in and say, well, you can't do this if you do this. My opinion is I see Madea purely as entertainment, and if you're gonna use your resources to write a specific movie, if he's going to tell a story, and I don't know any that just comes to mind, but I know I have saw movies that he's directed to bring attention to certain things. But
one of them is 6888. If you saw that one,
I haven't saw that. I'm not
okay.
familiar.
That is the movie about the Black ladies that were in the army that were getting very badly discriminated against, but they were given an opportunity to try to do something, and they brought a great job to fixing the postal system in the army.
I did.
Yeah, that's
I
Kerry
didn't know the
Washington's
name of
in
it.
that, right?
Say again?
Kerry Washington is in that, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I did see that movie. Forgive me, I didn't know the name. What's the name of that movie?
6888.
6888. See, I didn't know the name of it, but yes, I did see it. Me and my wife did. And I think that he was able to tell that I can say unknown story, but not many knew of the plight of that women, and it was marginalized and relegated to just male, and really a task that they didn't think that they would be able to do. It's some busy work to try to show that they would fail. They basically set them up to become self-fulfilling, but they overcame. And yeah, so that movie was great, and I didn't realize that Tyler Perry was the director for that movie. So yeah, so again, I respect Tyler Perry. I don't have any disdain or anything negative, but I think he gets a lot of, because of the Madea character. And then when you watch some of the TV shows, there's a lot. It seems that it's the, I mean, and I said respectfully, it seems that the homosexuality finds its way in a lot of those TV shows and roles. And again, maybe it's to bring about attention, some equality. I don't know. I can, but me personally, that kind of when I see certain things on the shows, I see I didn't see that there was a need for that to happen, this relationship to take a left turn, while the show is just getting good and as entertaining as it is, and some of that is reaching, right. And so and for that reason, I kind of reserve my.
I would say this in reference to what you're saying. The standard that is necessary, that in my opinion is needed in the Black community, is not on the same level as other communities. So we got to be very careful what we project.
Yeah.
And if I'm understanding what you're saying, I agree with that. Now, watching the documentary of Tyler Perry and where he came from and what he went through, I understand where the character of Madea came from. However, once he used that character to get where he is, or he came to, he didn't necessarily have to keep on doing it. However, that character helped him to get to a level where he can buy that big studio in Atlanta, and he can employ a lot of people. So we got to look at it like that. What's your opinion on Tyler Perry and what he has done, Dr. Wadley?
Yeah, humans are complex characters, right? So my take on Tyler Perry is that, any Black man in society that can do what he's done, you got to admire that, right? Building the studio, all the movies he's produced, things of that nature, respect that. My critique on him is that I think he's straight up, I want to make money. And he knows that he can package harmful hegemonic discourses and black pathology, and it sells because we're in an anti-black society that loves to see black pathology and and
Can I
consume it.
interject one thing?
Yeah, yeah.
One thing that I saw that was a constant strain through some of his movies, like why did somebody get married? It was like 1 and 2 and different things. He had a character that was a crack addict, a woman. Now, it's not something that's good or beautiful to look at. However, it's a part of our community. It is, and I saw he did not, just like even homosexuality. We got to be honest that that is a segment of our community that is out there. Now, we have a greater responsibility, in my opinion, to try to upbuild our community, but he just took it and said, okay, I'm gonna tell the truth. Now, how much light should have been shed on that? I'm like Brother Angeletti, that I'm not sure, but at some point, you got to say, okay, I want to have respect and try to build up the community, and so it's a fine line. Go ahead, Dr. Wadley.
Yeah, just to say on that, yeah, no problem with, telling the quote unquote truth. And yeah, there is homosexuality in the black community. There's, a lot of things, crackheads, so forth. My thing is that how are we packaging that and putting that out there for consumption, right? Like the Medea character. That Medea character is a packaging of all the most negative things you can think of about middle-aged black women and put out there for display. And so me who has a mom that's a black woman, I have a problem with that. That's something that concerns me because I think it paints black women in a light that's not entirely accurate or fair and just. So those are the kind of things I have a problem with Tyler Perry about. With black men, movies where black men are womanizers and mean and mean spirited. Like not all brothers are like that. So my thing is that with his power and ability, I think he could do a better job of telling our stories without packaging up the pathology because that sells, and he makes money off of that.
I just want to say he did certain things to get to where he is, but what he is doing now is much more respectful, much more, I think, empowering. He hasn't done Medea in quite a while, a few years, and maybe he won't show her again. But even with Medea, he shows some good qualities. Now, the big thing about that is a man dressing up as a woman, and should we promote that type of transgender look and so forth? But what she was trying to say as a character that was all about family and would stand up for a family, a lot of that was good. A lot of that was good. Now, was he the person to dress up in a wig and so forth to do that? That's another question. But I think today he has arrived at a space where, okay, I did this, but today I'm gonna do this. That's all I say. Let me ask another question before our time goes up. The biggest thing in the black or in the media community is P. Diddy. Now, some people will say, just like with Bill Cosby, that the white man is just messing with him and they need to leave him alone. He's black. I'm going to respect him as well as I'm going to back him up, just because of this, that, and the other. I don't personally take that role. I think, in my opinion, he was a detriment, and he was a detriment to mostly black people. That's my role. Just like I say with Bill Cosby, he was a great role model for a while, but if you put drinks in ladies' drinks to be able to have your way, that's something, I got 2 daughters. I had a problem with that. So just because he's black, I don't automatically say we should back him. What do y'all say, Brother Angeletti, what you say about P. Diddy's situation?
Yeah, with the P. Diddy situation, I mean, obviously it's still unfolding. He's on trial, so I mean, you know, it's bombshell. And every time I haven't got a chance to really watch it minute by minute, but I see the highlights, you know, of the testimonies and who's taking a stand. I think the evidence is overwhelming in terms of, I mean, to what extent and what part is true and not true. But I think there's evidence that at least his business practice has been I mean, he lacks in integrity just in terms of the artists that have come forward, right? I mean, and that's not necessarily what he's on trial for, but if we're going to look at whether or not he's being railroaded or whether or not he is a conspiracy to take down, you know, African American as a billionaire who was actually cracking the code to get into corporate America at the highest levels. Um, you know, I can't, in good conscience, subscribe to that, right? Although I get the frustration, you know, in some people that would follow, I would say follow, but they would support. It's almost, I mean, it's not the same, I know, but the way that we was divided on the O.J. Simpson, right? I mean, whether we admit it or not, many of us was we wanted to see OJ acquitted because it was polarized. It had become, I mean, let's just face it, it had become, you know, what it did. Race was a factor. Now, whether or not he committed murder or not, it wasn't, for many of us, we didn't really keep that in the forefront. It was about protecting our own and being supportive. And so with the P. Diddy, it's not the same, of course. And so anyone that's having that discussion to say, we're going to support this brother despite, right? But despite what? Because we're talking about the lack of integrity in the music industry. A lot of those individuals that he was harming was also African Americans, right? We're not getting many of the music executive that's saying that he had his practices was you know, and he did something against Sony or against one of the major labels. But we getting, I mean, countless artists that stepping forward to say that they were signed and put on the shelf, and so therefore they can provide because they were stuck in, you know, lopsided contract that they couldn't provide. Not only they couldn't perform under that label, but they couldn't even go out and pursue, you know, work elsewhere or get a contract somewhere else. So we're gonna look at that and we want to talk about being supportive of the brother. I mean, which brother? Are we going to, you know, support the brothers that's deceased? Whether or not, of course, he hasn't been convicted of anything, so I don't want to overstep and speak out of turn of that. But there's a lot of allegations. There's a lot of people that, you know, at this point, I do believe he's the common denominator when it comes to a lot of these allegations that we're hearing. So to say that he's innocent, no. Not to what extent Cassie, you know, played a role and she wanted the sexual, you know, exploits and all of that. I mean, that's why they're on trial. I would like to see the, you know, jury really take the facts and deal with that in terms of sexual abuse. But P. Diddy is certainly, I believe, guilty of, you know, unfair practices in his musical role, executive
I,
role.
I agree, and I just want to say, I would like in our community to, just because the white man, he could do something doesn't mean we should do it. We should have a higher standard. You know, people argue, hey, Trump has done this, Trump has done that. We should be able to do. No, we don't want to do. You know, trying to be like them has brought down a lot of us from a moral capacity. Dr. Wadley, what you say about P. Diddy?
Yeah, just what I've seen on snippets, you know, on the news and so forth. Definitely, I have a problem with men who beat on women. I have a big problem with that. Can't support that. Can't support them. Have a big problem with that. And that's what we do know about him for sure, right? Is that he likes to abuse women. As far as the sexual exploits, I think that gets thrown up and it clouds like really what some of the, you know, I don't care if he likes the oils and all that. That doesn't bother me. But the fact the way he clearly we've seen him beat women and mistreat women. I have a big problem with that, and I think anybody like that does that, whatever they get from the criminal justice system is what they deserve.
I agree. I mean, I think the evidence is really kind of overwhelming. When you got that many allegations against you, there is not everybody is coming forward trying to exploit you or certain things. So he just has overwhelming evidence, letters, documents, and witnesses against him. And just because he's black, I'm not gonna give him, the benefit of the doubt. Matter of fact, I hold him to a higher standard. We have talked about a lot as far as impact in our community. Yes, the church used to be the main things, but my thing is black cinema is leading today. Spike Lee went through such a difficult path to be able to, because he spent so many years of losing money on his films and not having proper backing. He was fighting just to get out there, and he was at the forefront of black directors to be able to make a way for Ryan Coogler, Lee Daniels, and all the rest of them. So he certainly gets accolades for that. But I have a list of 10 who I think are right now at the most impactful. And I'm going to read my list real quick. Number 10 is Cory Booker, Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey. I think he may be running for president. We don't know what's going to happen in 4 years or even earlier. Number 9, Kathy Hughes, the president of Radio One, I believe, and she owns several television as well as radio stations. Very impactful. Number 8, I'm saying Ryan Coogler. That new contract he got, which is very prominent, and most directors, most artists don't get that. I think he's the new age, and I'm looking as him as one of the leaders of the new genre in black cinema. Snoop Dogg, I got him number 7 because he's out there everywhere and doing everything. And where he come from, a Long Beach thug. He was a Long Beach thug, man. And he's come up and he's on everything, and he's made for Chisel a household name. So I got to give him his due. And if he continues, he can, impact a whole lot more. Number 6, I think, is LeBron James. When you got that kind of money, but he got to play his cards right, because once he gets off the basketball court, what is he going to do? Now in Akron, he built a school, and he has a lot of possibilities. You can go a lot of ways with that, but he has a whole lot of possibilities. Number 5 is Denzel. Just the buildup of his character and what he's done over the years has put him in this position. Number 4, Michael Jordan. Same thing with that. And I think he's played his cards very well. He certainly has the money. He has the prestige. And he has a lot of possibilities of what he could do. Number 3 is a combination of Jay-Z and Beyonce. I think he's done very well. However, be careful of falling into or getting judged by former bad associations and different things. But I think he legally has handled that. And if he plays his card right, he'll still be very impactful. I believe the combination of them are billionaires. And you can do a lot when you're a billionaire. Oprah Winfrey is number 2. Barack Obama and Michelle combination are number 1. Anybody want to comment on that or present different people that I don't have on there? And like Tyler Perry, I might take somebody off and put Tyler Perry on there.
Yeah, I didn't come up with a top 10 list. I wish I had seen your message a little earlier, but just on the top of my head, some people I think, and I'm coming from a academia / political context with mine. One is, to me, is Nicole Hannah Jones. That's the sister that did the 1619 Project.
Who was that?
Nicole Hannah-Jones. She did the
Okay.
1619 Project, which basically showed how America was built on systemic Black racism, and very powerful work that she did. If you haven't read that, another sister that's powerful, Michelle Alexander.
I just want to say this real quick.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people like Anthony Browder, Tashay Coates, whatever his name is.
Ta-Nehisi Coates, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in academia, but not very many people know about the people in academia. Now, if we could find a way to like the science brother, I forgot his name. You know who I'm talking about. He's on TV all the time. The astronomer.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah, he's up there, but not enough people know about him. Now, how can we get that changed? But go ahead, brother. I
hear that they might not be quote unquote popularly known household names, but there are some profound thinkers, and their work is into the discourse when it comes to political talk about these issues. So their names may not come up with that, but they've influenced the thought and the discussions and conversations around those things, which in turn affects policy decisions and things of that nature. So, and activism. So that's why I was going with those. So yeah, I agree. My people on my list may not be the most known household names, however, but they've had an impact broad nonetheless. Somebody else I put on my list is Vice President Kamala Harris, who ran such a powerful, impactful campaign about the power of Black women and how transformed this country could be. It shook white America when they galvanized around a fascist white supremacist. So I think she's had a huge impact on this country, and I hope she continues to do so. I encourage her to run. Sister, if you're listening, Kamala, you should run again. There should be no shame in that. Somebody else I put on my list is Derek Johnson, the president of the NAACP. For like decades, the NAACP was was almost dying on the vine, and this brother has taken it over as the president and really galvanized it, where it's more politically active, it's more bold in its political activism, which is something we need. Instead of a kumbaya organization, it's become a very firm, aggressive organization with calling out white supremacy and talking about the systemic issues of racism. Kind of in a funny note, but not so much funny, Roland Martin. I think he has a big voice, politically, and I think he kind of fits in that mold, like you mentioned, somebody that can be a household person that's known at the same time having a big voice that's impactful as well and influencing the discourse. So those are just the top of my head, a few of the ones I came up with, just on the top of my head.
I just want to add in real quick, Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland, very impactful and also politically astute. Brother Ron, do you have some people you got that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I don't have a full list, but given some time, I mean, I'm sure I can accumulate a list, but just off the top of my head, I personally give a lot of credit and respect to those that put it on the line, that may have been in mainstream and probably on that corporate ladder, but because of a stand against, a stand for, kind of went into the shadows, like Colin Kaepernick, Tavis Smiley, guys. I respect Louis Farrakhan, my minister Louis Farrakhan. Not my faith don't align with Islam, but however, taking a stand for the amount of years that he has, taking a stand, guys like that.
There was a time that Minister Farrakhan would have been number one on that list.
Yeah. So it's guys, and not just guys. When I say guys as in gender, but it's individuals. Jasmine Crockett, right? The senator from Texas. I like the way that she's bold and courageous, and she stand up and she speak truth to power. I mean, it's quite a few. So that's probably about five. Like I say, it would be those individuals. I mentioned Spike Lee. Like you said, Spike Lee has the skill. He has the insight, and early on, probably didn't have the funding, and you know, you say he lost money. I mean, he had funding, but didn't have the corporate or the backing. And I think, given so, he could have did more. But I don't know exactly what's going on with him. I haven't seen anything about him lately. But I do know that he has, you know, when it wasn't popular to take a stand on certain topics and to say certain things, right? And any of those individuals, I don't wholeheartedly. So, yeah, I mean, when I say wholehearted, I don't blindly support, because there's something that I don't know about. I mean, so when I'm supporting what I know about them in terms of taking a stand. When I said Tavis Smiley, I don't know what else is going on with the Tavis Smiley these days. And also, you mentioned Roland Martin. I like Roland Martin coming from, I don't know if he was on CNN or one of the mainstreams, right?
Mm-hmm.
And whatever happened, now he has his own internet podcast. I mean, not a podcast, but I think he has his own network or his own news. I mean, it's not as mainstream,
Right.
but he's using it, and I see that it's growing and growing. So it's individuals like that that go against the grain, against the status quo, right? And sometimes it's to their detriment, and I don't want to say detriment because they're still striving, still trying to make something happen. But when I say to their detriment, they don't have the backing of corporate America or one of the major news networks. So that's about 5 or 6 that comes to mind that may have sacrificed their own personal success, personal growth, to stand firm, to speak truth to power. And so individuals like that, I always look up to.
Yeah, the last one I'll add that's popped in my head is Michelle Alexander. She wrote the book A New Jim Crow. If you haven't read that one, which basically talks about that the prison industrial complex in America is basically the new Jim Crow of our time. So very powerful work. If you haven't read that one, I highly encourage it.
We can't
Yeah.
always just go by who's popular, especially with corporate America. As we know, Minister Farrakhan was blackballed. Nobody was much more blackballed than he was during that time, and it affected Jesse Jackson, his presidential campaign, across the board. So we know that just because corporate America is not shaking hands with him and hugging him, that doesn't say who is the most impactful. And we understand, just like Spike Lee, now he's getting much more benefit, credit, and you know, that movie that I saw, The Four Bros, I think it's called. If you
The
haven't
Four
seen
Bloods.
it,
That was a good movie. I like
that
that.
was one of his best movies ever. And you know that, and he got paid for that. Netflix paid him for that, as well as Black Klansman was a pretty good movie. It was all right. And so he's starting to get his accolades and his money, I think, now. But they held him back. You know, when he had the argument with Clint Eastwood, you know, they blackballed him and everything else. But he stuck with it, and he's starting to get accolades. And the Black community, hey, still says he paved the way, and we have always loved him and love him more even today. So just because corporate America doesn't like him doesn't make him the most or the less impactful in the Black community. We have a different criteria. Just as I'm saying with Bill Cosby now, I don't, just because of, you know, what he accomplished in the comedy scene, but, you know, I have to look at it differently. But I have to give him credit for what he did then. But I also understand that he thought it okay to put, you know, different drugs in women's drinks. And I have to think about that.
You know, and that's the great tragedy, right? That someone who created such brilliance. Man, I grew up on Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. Man, a lot of values that I have with, you know, sharing and teamwork and brotherhood and fairness came from watching that show, man. You know, and to see him be what he is today, a rapist, man, that's to me where the tragedy lies. You know,
And
with
that's the
individuals.
dichotomy of human behavior, human existence. Sometimes, you know, Elijah Muhammad had great principles of different things, but he's accused of sleeping, some say raping underage girls in his mosque. So it's so much that is a dichotomy of human nature. And I got to be very careful judging. And I'm slow to judge because I don't know all the details, but I do know some of the things that people go through. So some people that corporate America say is not good, I know they're good, and I
Right.
give them credit, like Minister Farrakhan, who has 9 kids. He's been with his wife all along, and he's done so much. He did the Million Man March, which should
I
have
was
been
there.
one of the greatest things in history. And, I consider that one of the greatest things in history. Corporate America doesn't. They tried to whitewash it and say it wasn't 2 million men there. It was 400,000. And they stopped saying the park department, they are not going to give any more totals of how many people there because they don't want that to ever come up again. So he's changed history in that way. But it's so many things when you start talking about who's the most impactful and who is the judge of that. Young people might say, young NBA young boy is the most impactful. I don't know any song that he did. I do know a song by Moneybagg Yo, but I don't know that much of what's going on there. But they may have a different argument. So, and I don't want to discount it. I remember when I was starting out as a teacher, all my kids were talking about Tupac, and I thought they was crazy. I just thought they was crazy that they were saying this young brother is this, that, and the other. But when he got shot, and my stepson started listening and bringing it, I started paying attention. And when I listened at it, I said, okay, wait a minute. I understand what this brother talking about. I understand what he's saying, and it had an impact. So I try to be slow to judge and try to be open and not just go along with who corporate America says we supposed to accept and go along with. And
Mm-hmm.
how life is. Go ahead, Brother Ron.
No, I think it'd be important when we say impact. I think we should look at influence, right? Because you can have influence, but what are you influencing, right? You say NBA young boy, or you say even Snoop Dogg, respectfully. I mean, when you say your list of all of your lists, if you was asking me if there was someone to would I adopt the list? Yeah, Snoop Dogg wouldn't make a list. However, I do respect that he was able to, pull himself up by his own bootstrap, as one would say. However, at what point do you realize that you're here for such a time as this, right? That you're here to, when we talk about impact, right? We talk about not just influence, but impact. Are you having, is the impact positive? And I think that Snoop Dogg, now he is certainly influential, right? And he's certainly he's managed to rub elbows and get in the right, I can say the right circle, to get in circles that allow him to continue to matriculate throughout the industry. But has he used that platform? Has he used his voice for the greater good? I don't know enough that he's doing. I would like to see him transition because he's in some of the circles that I think he can get more done. So I guess if I was to sum up what I'm saying in that respect, I would say, what is his conviction? I don't know what is Snoop Dogg's convictions, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know he know how to get money. He from a soda commercial to Travelocity or whatever it is, and I get it. Go get the money, but then what?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I think that we have to be open to the impact can come from several different communities. Take a brother like Ice Cube, who you could replace Snoop Dogg with. Ice Cube started writing at a very young age, and he's put that writing into writing screenplays. Of course, his music. Now he's the founder and the president of the Big Three, and all the things that he's did. I just say if we have impact from so many different directions and we don't fight with one another, we don't say you're not good or not worthy, so I'm not going to talk with you. Let's be open to talk with each other to help each other. And maybe 5 or 6 of them or 7 of them can put together their money and buy NBC.
Yeah, no.
That's what I say. Don't fight against the next man. Let's build together. Let's build those circles.
Yeah, I agree.
From those circles, we can all grow. And that's the thing that I see as far as impact. I mean, you could change these 10 people with 10 other people, and it would still be very correct and very relevant. So you can have that. We are right at the end of our show. Dr. Wadley, you got a last comment about this?
Yeah, I'll just add that, first of all, thank you, brother, for always having me on and invite me to engage. Just thing is that I always say with this that the Black community is a beautiful, creative, dynamic institution, people, and there's nothing we can't do. I think that we can always do better and strive. I challenge our people that are out there, the Tyler Perrys, the Snoop Dogs, that, with great power comes great responsibility, right? And you're out there, you have a responsibility to serve and lead and work in a way that enhances the race and not holds the race back. So although we applaud your achievements are being watched by the whole planet, and as a result of that have impact on us as a race. So I that's what I'll say to that.
Okay, thank you, brother. Would you like to share how anybody can reach you?
Oh, yeah, sure. Dr. Cleo Speaks. I'm an educational consultant. You can reach me at drcleo.com.
Well, thank you, brother. Brother Angeletti, how's your book doing?
It's doing well, man. I recently released the workbooks, one for grade school and one for middle school, and they directly coincide with the book. But just taking that feedback, I wanted something that was more tangible for the youth. The book would work best in tandem with mentor, mentee, player, coach, son, father. Whereas the workbook, giving the book to a kid and without the accountability, I didn't. I'm just taking the constructive criticism on how I can really drive the mission, a home, and try to get more out of it. So that's what the workbooks come about, and so it's doing well. Of course, I would. If I was in a position, I would give them away because I know the impact that the positive impact that it can have. So with the workbooks, I've been doing pretty well, being able to do some guest speaking in schools and especially in those environments with the at-risk students that are socially and academically at risk. So, looking forward to it this summer and in the fall with the Chicago, there's a Chicago book fair. I was invited there, so I'm looking forward to, that and doing more, just throughout the country to bring it, awareness and marketing opportunities to get the book out. So yeah. So thanks for asking. And I didn't want to tell you, I really appreciate that you use your platform, right? So I want to say to you, despise not small beginnings. Very, very, very good topic, and I apologize. I had technical difficulties. When I got the list, very, very good topics of discussion. And I wish I would have been here, 100% to engage in each area of it. But but I just want to commend you for your efforts, and I want you to stick to it. Great show. Despise not small beginnings. You're onto something here, yeah. And thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yes, brother. Share the name of your book where people can find it, as well as anything else, who you are and where they can talk to you.
Yeah, the book is Climb, Uplift, and Build. That's the title of the book. You can learn more about the book at RonAngeletti.books.com. That's RONANGELETTI books with an SBOOKS.com. Learn more, get more insight about the book and the workbooks. And there's also a link from the website where you can purchase the book, and you can also find the book on Amazon as well. So and my direct contact is Ron Angeletti at yahoo.com and teach another at gmail.com. I am also an education consultant, specializing in behavior support services and special education advocacy.
Yes, brother. Well, thank you very much. We are always going to have some interesting subjects on the Sourceseeker Hour. My next show is I'm just messing up my subject, but climate change. There it goes. You know how you have that space, you can't think of it, but climate change and our changing economy is our next show. And we're going to have a very interesting discussion where we talk about the stock market, crypto, and how that affects the world and climate change and different things. So that's going to be our next show. And everybody out there on Facebook and out in the virtual world and the regular world, we thank you very much. And we'll see you next time. Everybody, thank you. And brothers, I will get you a video as soon as possible. Thank you.